Today, on the 21st of April 21, I'm going to start sharing about a few different topics that I've been working on since 2006. So now that there's a background to the obstacles that I'm experiencing and the strife that is being caused, I'm going to move on from a heavy topic to a more inspirational and aspirational topic. The work that I've been doing as a teacher and as a recovery advocate and as a person that needed recovery over a decade ago and that worked with young people and old and with different capabilities and with different requirements, my experience is vast. So the uploads that I'm going to be sharing from now on will be based on self-development. As an educator and as a humanitarian, and as a self-motivated individual, I've always felt it beneficial to encourage others. And sometimes I've needed to motivate myself, particularly when I was confronted with the situations that I've described, which haven't been easy. So there's lots of work out there. I've read and studied vast works of many brilliant motivational advocates, and the matters that I am going to focus on are of my own personal interests. Now, everyone has their own pet loves, everyone has their own interests and hobbies and pastimes. So this is just a small framework of where I'm going to start. And as I've mentioned, my interests are in photography, creative art and design, as well as education. The works that are only small little steps for me at the moment, with the physical going on, the physical ailments going on, the physical ailments that are happening, and basically the work that I've just put together that I'm going to be basing a few ideas on for these uploads are with regard to not just culinary skills, inspirational or aspirational motivators, and just a few helpful self-development tips. So there's a trilogy that I've put together that I want to expand on, and I'm going to elaborate about in these uploads. So the starting point is basically my own experiences that you have a background to and that have been helpful to my progress at many stages throughout the past 15 years. And I think as a qualified individual with the experience, it would be helpful for myself and for others just to share about how to help ourselves over obstacles that are put in our ways in society, in our personal lives, in our profession. So the starting point began about a month or two ago. I stayed up all night and I just started tackling a project that I had in mind and that I've conducted years ago and didn't bring to fruition, but have brought to a stage now where I'm going to start working on that for my own self-interest and self-development again with all that is occurring. So the matters that I think are important are structure, attitude, there's the goal setting, the objectives, and there's the time frame. So in 2019, I decided that I had to prioritize my health. So that's what I've been working on, and it has improved. That's just a minor objective, but with a huge impact. 2 years ago, my mobility was horrendous. It was very, very difficult for me to sit and to get up. Simple little things like that. My nutrition wasn't supporting my requirements, and there were other little matters that I had to treat that I've described in the previous uploads. So the single objective within a 2-year period has brought to fruition a positive development, and for me that's enough. There have been other objectives that I'm still waiting to come into fruition, but the learning point of that is that I have done my bit, and other people's response and requirements to acknowledge their ownership of a situation, to address what is required, is their obligation. So I've fulfilled my obligation to myself, fulfilling my medical and self-healing requirements and objectives. And there have been other matters, as I'm trying to elaborate, that are out of my hands. The issue of having a physical, a mental, and a spiritual dimension is all very relevant. So the physical, I've looked into and addressed. The mental has been as peaceful and as sober as I have encountered all challenges along the way. And my spiritual dimension is pretty much intact. So the objective with regard to the mental is simple activities that everyone conducts every day. Simple, structured activities. Sometimes it's not so easy to have a structure, and that's when things might fall out of place, when our chores or our daily tasks aren't able to be fulfilled. The daily tasks is one aspect of the mental, but also keeping abreast of current affairs, personal interests, etc., are just simple things. And we all have personal interests, and sometimes we get sidetracked from our personal interests and we get lost with regard to our identity. And when we don't have an identity, that's when it's like either a bend or break situation. Some people break when they haven't a fulfilling identity, and when they aren't self-fulfilled, they bend to other people's needs and requirements, and that's not self-fulfilling. So the objective of our life experience is to feel accomplished and self-fulfilled. The spiritual dimension to our experience is with regard to our conscience and our behaviours and our actions and our thoughts, which aren't always easily kept on an even keel with life's challenges. So the matter of sobriety and sober thinking and living have many different connotations. You mightn't drink, you mightn't abuse substances, but your thinking could be very harmful to your life experience. So there are people that are using substances and they're more sober than an actual dry person, or a sober, clean, sober person that doesn't use any substances. So the idea of spiritual and mental working together to produce a sober-minded individual that behaves rationally and that is considerate not only of one's own objectives and needs and wants and requirements, but also considerate and sensible about other people's experiences. Empathy. There's selfish. Selfish is a requirement when there is a very big obstacle for a person when healing. Selfish is then acceptable. But then there is empathy, when people don't have insight and aren't capable of practicing the simple principles of good behaviour. And when people don't have empathy, that's when there's ripple effect of negative outcomes. And that just has a ripple effect on other people's lives. And it doesn't make a person feel good in the long run to be disrupting or disturbing other human beings. So the mentality of trying to keep your own side of the street clean and to maintain your own integrity and dignity are very high ideals. And they are objectives that would be for years for many to achieve. And they aren't easily remedied overnight. So as a person speaking from experience and qualification, the personal description of mine is that as a self-absorbed individual 20 years ago that had to grow up after a tough experience, had to do the work and had to become a better person. And that's all about what? Elevating oneself to good, fulfilling lifestyle habits